also felt like it was important for us to take 6 months that we were not developing for Corral before we released our own product. We did that. That was a difficult time because neither of us were making any money at all. Just nobody knew about it. It's just a sea of apps out there. I think we were making like $260 a day. And Chris had said to me, I can't do this much longer.
So we're here with Terri Morgan from Luma Touch. Obviously, you guys know LumaFusion. This is an app that we've talked about for many years. She is part of that instrumental duo to bring us LumaFusion, and we're honored to have her on the show. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for the introduction.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Terri.
Yeah.
But I'm personally excited because, as I was mentioning in the pre-call, I've been using LumaFusion since 2018, maybe even 2017, on the original iPad Pro, that the huge tablet still with the home button.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, LumaFusion has a big part in my creator journey and my YouTube journey. And I was telling Terri, I was kind of doing some simple math. I have over 800 videos edited on LumaFusion on an iPad.
That's insane.
If you date back to when I started. Yeah, crazy. So this is a beautiful time to kind of talk about it. For sure.
I'm gonna have to go look and see if he's surpassed me. I'm a little bit envious there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is an awesome thing to see. And I've just continued to learn with it. It keeps evolving alongside with me. There's little tricks and things that I've been learning along the way with LumaFusion to kind of expedite my workflow. And this is a beautiful system, and it works so well with the iPad and the iPhone. And I kind of just want to learn a little bit, or we want to learn a little bit about how it came to be, what your background is, what made you think of LumaFusion to begin with.
Yeah.
So kind of take it away, Terri, and kind of give us the ins and outs of how it all started.
Right. Well, I was working at Avid as well as Chris Damaris, who's now the co-founder with me. And we had an amazing manager that took eight employees aside and said, hey, I want you to go build something that edits on an iPad. And that was his only instruction. He said 6 months, come back in 6 months with a product. And we came back with Avid Studio for iPad. And it was just an amazing experience because in development, prior to working on iOS, there's a lot of lag between a designer saying, I want this feature, this is how it should look and feel, and a developer creating that feature. And there's a lot that happens in between those 2 points, and sometimes that lag causes its own kind of problems. And when we started on iOS, we just were freed from that lag because, I mean, there was times in development where I would say, Chris would say, do you like this? And I would say, no, I like it this other way. And 15 minutes later, he says, do you like this better? And I could actually touch and hold the thing that he was creating. So we had a great time on that team. And then Avid sold Avid Studio and Avid Studio for iPad and the whole team to Corral. And at that point, Corral, they weren't really in the business at that time of supporting development. They were in the business of just putting the product out there, letting go of the employees, and just making money from that product. I don't know what they're doing now, but at that time, you're gone.
For the audience, Avid is, just to kind of clarify, is that just another company kind of in the same world, or?
Oh, Avid is Avid Media Composer. Like from the 80s onward, they were the top dog of video editing, and in some realms they still are. They kind of went into the more high-end news and big systems work, and so now they're less popular than Final Cut or whatever, but they were totally the thing to use. I used them for years and years as a professional editor.
And top dog in audio too, with Pro Tools.
Right, and Pro Tools. I mean, They did acquire a lot of companies, which means they have a huge breadth of knowledge in the industry. And frankly, I mean, I started out at as an editor, and then I was hired by Lightworks. What they did was they would take a film and they'd identify the different frames and associate those with frames on video, so you could edit your film on video and then have the negative cut. So this goes way back, but they did a lot of films back in the day, and so I was working for them, and you know, I've been bought and sold so many times I can't even tell you. And I've never looked for a job ever in my
Interesting.
career that I can remember. There was one time when I was working, finally Lightworks closed down, and I was the last person standing at our little team, and my job was just to tell customers they can't have a fix. You know, that was kind of a sucky job, but at the end of that, I went to Fast Multimedia and worked on Liquid. So I've been around the block in editing companies.
Yeah.
But so when we were sold to Corel, Chris and I, after a bit of time, decided to, Corel had made Avid Studio for iPad into Pinnacle Studio for iPad. They took the Pinnacle brand. And we decided to ask them if we could support Pinnacle and develop it for them. Just me and him, and they said, yeah, sure, that's fine. They didn't really care. They're like, you know, so that kept us in business long enough to create LumaFusion, which took us 3 years, from 2013 to the end of 2016. It took us to build LumaFusion, the first version.
I have a question. Like, what did that manager at Abbott see to be? Because that was a pretty forward-thinking sort of, like,
Yeah.
go
Yeah, the
make
iPad was
an
only
app for
2-3 years old
iPad.
at that point.
Yeah, I mean, his name was Tongi, and he was just an amazing manager. For one, he brought our team from a place of dysfunction to a real working team using Agile for development. So he put us through Agile training, and he was just a forward-thinking guy, and he still is to this day. You know, he's called the Sherpa now, and he does the marketing sort of video and newsletter. But yeah, I think what he saw was that employees, when they're happy and when they are left to be creative, that they can bring a different kind of energy to a product than using the traditional method, which was called waterfall, where someone sits down and writes a whole big 1,500-page spec, which I did for Liquid or
Sounds
one of those
brutal.
products. And then you hand it off to the developers and you say, you know, have fun with that. And then the developers are angry. They build things even though they can see they're wrong, and you know, all this kind of negativity happens. And Tongi was like, you know what, if I just put a small team together and they each have 100% autonomy to, you know, impact the product, then they will. And we did. It was just the best experience. And so here at Luma Touch, we run it very much the same. All of our employees have, no matter what their job is, they have just as much right to say, I don't like this isn't working right, this happened to me and I was angry, or this interface is ugly. Whatever they want to say, we take that in and respect that. So I think it's a great place to work, but I mean, you'd have to ask the employees. Yeah, but
I'm
we
sure
use
it is.
Agile, so anyone can write a story about what they want. And then that story goes into a group meeting where we discuss it and so on. Eventually gets designed.
What do you think it does for a company to be freed of that legacy baggage from, like, old school? You mentioned the waterfall method, not having that baggage weighing you down. What does that do for a company as a whole?
Yeah.
What would you say?
I mean, I think what it does is people get excited in the team and they think of ways to make things better. So I don't have to tell my team, go make this better, do this better, do this, do that. It's, they come to me and say, you know, I mean, in fact, Amy on our team, she said, you know what, I really love education. I always wanted to do education, and I want to be working to bring teachers into LumaFusion. And all I had to do was say, okay, figure out how to do that. And off she went to do that. And now she's going to all these conferences and really gaining momentum as our education person. But I personally wouldn't have known how to do that. Like, I don't know how to get into teaching and all that education stuff. So if I had to tell her how, I couldn't have. I would have just been like, I don't know, and would have been just a dud, you know. And now it's not. It's really growing into something. So I think the trusting, you know, you hire people because you think they're great, right? When you hire me, think this person knows what they're doing, they have experience, they love editing. That's one important thing to me, that they have to love editing. And or at least love video production in some way. So yeah, when you trust that that is there, then you can really relax and let them grow the company with you.
Absolutely. And I feel like there's a lot of synergies with 9 to 5 as well, where it's like you kind of, we're each in our own little silo, but we all back each other up and just lets us be creative. And Steph has done a great job. And same with Jeff, honestly, just empowering everybody to create what they want to create, how they want to create it. And like you said, you kind of just ask for the okay, and then you run with it at the end of the day and try to build what you can in the best way possible. But to kind of backtrack a little bit in terms of LumaFusion, so you and the team were guided to make the application specifically for the iPad.
That was Avid Studio for iPad. And then while we developed and maintained that product, which became Pinnacle Studio for iPad, I know this is confusing, Chris and I then built in the background LumaFusion. And at the time that we were done, we felt it was ethically our job to offer it to Corel. So we did actually call Corel and say, we have this product, do you want it? And they said no, thankfully.
You're like, yes.
Yeah, right. We'll take it.
Also felt like it was important for us to take 6 months that we were not developing for Corel before we released our own product, just because, you know, you have to keep these things separate. So we did that. That was a difficult time because neither of us were making any money at all. And then the first 6 months, it came out and just nobody knew about it. It's just a sea of apps out there. And about 6 months in, we were at, what's that show it's the one for YouTubers and stuff. I can't remember. It's a consumer show, and we were at that show, and I think we were making like $260 a day. And Chris had said to me, I can't do this much longer. We just went 6 months without income, and this is going nowhere. And Jeff Benjamin wrote an article about LumaFusion and put us on the map. And I owe everything to Jeff's article and to Jeff, because honestly, it just went up to a level and never went down. And it was all due to that article. And so for me, 9 to 5 Mac and Jeff are keys to what it's almost it's a magic and it's a luck, but it also, you know, there's things that happen that you have to be thankful for. And that was one thing that, like, if it hadn't have happened, we wouldn't be here. And I'm really thankful to Jeff.
I don't know about that, but like, I feel
Take your flowers.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it, really. But at the same time, you were prepared, right? Like, it'd be one thing if I wrote the article and it wasn't that great of an app.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it would have been like, you know,
That's true.
But because it was a good app, you were. There's a saying like, "Stay ready so you don't have to get ready," right? So you guys were ready, and it was just that point in time, that intersection that caused it.
Yes, but it's just that if you hadn't have shown up, that we were looking at 1 or 2 more weeks before we were done. You know, it was just like, we're done. We tried our hardest. We worked for 4 years with no pay, and our families can't sustain it any longer. You know, so you came along, and I was like, oh, Thank God. This is so
Well,
happy.
I might not even be here if it wasn't for that article, honestly.
That's right. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was.
Just to kind of paint the picture a little bit, at that time, I'm assuming you said late 2016, early 2017. What other competitors were out there for the iPad at that point?
Nothing. I mean,
Nothing,
iMovie,
right?
but there
Like
was
iMovie.
nothing that you could professionally edit with. So we
Hmm.
were the first professional editor for iPad and iPhone, and probably are still the only professional editor for iPhone.
Hmm.
Um, and now we're on Android and Chromebook and um, Silicon Mac. So we have expanded, but at the time there was just nothing. Now, of course, there's DaVinci and Apple has come out with their own version
Hmm.
of.
I just remember like desperately looking for an editor for the iPad, and I found Pinnacle. So I was using Pinnacle Studio for a while, but that's LumaFusion was in a whole different league
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
that came out. So it was just like mind blowing that we had this app that was so capable, this editor that was so
Hmm.
capable on the iPad.
I mean, Pinnacle Studio was Chris and I's work with our team there at Avid, and it was built on code that we ported. A lot of it was ported over from the desktop. So there was big chunks of code that were just, they weren't ideal for iOS, but they were working. And it put a lot of limitations into what we could do. Like we were just stuck in a framework that wasn't going to change without a lot of work. So when we
Hmm.
built LumaFusion, Chris made sure that we use always the latest frameworks and foundations from Apple, so that when Apple gets an upgrade, we get an upgrade for practically free. I mean, we do have to make sure things work and maybe change something, maybe add a little feature here or there, but that is our and now we did take a long time to come out with speed ramping and enhanced keyframing, which is in version 5 as an in-app purchase. But part of the reason was because LumaFusion's code is now, oh, you know, over 10 years old, parts of it were. So we had to
Hmm.
refactor that to keep up with, so that we can continue to add features for the future. So refactoring is basically rewriting big chunks of code. And with that can come bugs and things that you thought you fixed 5 times, and they're
Hmm.
back again. And so there's a lot of testing to be done. And now LumaFusion is really ready for the next things we have planned.
No, that's beautiful. And I remember back then, I think, like I said, it was late 2017 when I found LumaFusion. And what drew me to it was, yes, it was that professional video editor for the iPad, but I was just so impressed with how well it worked from both a real time perspective, like being able to render things in real time compared to what I had. I think I had a MacBook Air at that time, and I was running Final Cut Pro on it. And of course, the MacBook Air couldn't really handle what I was doing, so it would freeze up all the time. And it was just, I couldn't believe how much smoother it was on the iPad. And I think that's what made me realize that's what started my love for the iPad as well. Because, like, oh, this machine is a lot more powerful than most people think it is. And I'm sure when you were first before Jeff's article, part of it was that people didn't realize what the iPad can do back then and how powerful it really was and what Apple was doing. So I'm sure that really opened up the door to a lot of people like myself having the iPad as a computer replacement because, it was the MacBook Air was choking with Final Cut Pro, and then here I was with LumaFusion exporting things in real time on a tablet, and I thought that was amazing back in the day.
Yeah, yeah. And I think probably the same holds true for Apple. So when they came out with iPad and iOS, it was all new. Like they could do
Hmm.
a fresh look at the world and do better things. So
So I do want to talk about now LumaFusion 5.0 because as you mentioned, it was released about 3, 4 weeks ago. I've been using it. I've been testing it. I absolutely love it. The speed ramping, I use it all the time now, which is awesome. And even the default like pre-installed ones that are just easy to
hmm
use. It's been amazing. So I mean, talk to us a little bit about 5.0. What got you guys to this point? What made you bring those new features in? Elaborate on it a little bit.
speed ramping is the top requested feature over the life of LumaFusion. So
It works flawlessly, by the way.
thank you.
Yeah.
We had to do it in that sense, because we do like to listen to our customers, and you know what they ask for. We try our hardest to give. But I didn't want to, you know, you could do speed ramping in a lot of different ways, but I wanted to have the advanced or enhanced keyframing done, so that, because enhanced keyframing gives us two things. It gives us the paths and the curves, which have nothing to do with speed ramping, but also it gives the easing. So that is how fast you're changing from one thing to another on any parameter, including speed. And there's a lot of different ways to do that too. You could just have a little menu that says ease in or slow in, fast out, you know, whatever. But we all felt like that when you develop for an iPad, little menus popping up to to realize something is just not the style. It's not what we like to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, like you
Absolutely, yeah.
can't control it because it's just one speed, but also it's just hard to visualize. So we created this whole graph that you can see the ease in and ease out. It's all color coded, so if you move the purple slider, you can see where on your clip is the purple area, which is the ingoing to the keyframe, and then green is the outgoing. So we have it all color coded. You can see exactly what's happening. Nothing ever weird happens. And so people think sometimes, oh, speed ramping it's so easy. Why didn't you just put it in? It's like, but it, well, even one person said we should just copy from someone else. I said, but there's nobody to copy. Like this on mobile, having this level of control doesn't exist until now. So who would I copy? I mean, honestly, I would copy someone if they had a really great thing, but there's usually, when you're going for professional features on mobile, no good example out there. So, and also I don't like to copy because honestly, I do this job because I love it, and I wouldn't get a lot of joy out of that. So I just tend not to want to do that. And yeah.
And along with the speed ramping, that's a feature that I use all the time on desktop, and to have that so easy to do in LumaFusion is a nice addition.
Yeah, I think before, you know, we had to freeze the whole entire composition of many layers as one thing. And I hadn't even realized myself how much more powerful it would be just to freeze the background or just freeze this layer or freeze, you know, it just really helps a lot. So yeah, I do like that. We also have adjustable, added an adjustable UI to the effects editors. We've added grids and guides so you can move, and you can move a horizon line so you can line things up. We have new transitions. We have left and right hand editing in the effects editor now, so you can switch the preview to the other side. And one of my favorites is the what's happening panel. Because,
Yeah.
that's
I
just
like that one
fun.
too, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get to kind of all be on the same page. So we released the keyframing, the enhanced keyframing and speed ramping. And before you buy it, you see the opportunity to buy it in there. But once you buy it, you immediately get the exact tutorials you need to be a master at those features. So that's cool.
And then talk to me, because you mentioned buying these as an add-on, and I feel like LumaFusion is one of the final remaining, you know, apps and companies that hasn't gone to the subscription model. So,
Yeah, us and
which I love.
Procreate.
Thank you, by the way. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that decision, because I'm sure it's very easy to be like, you know what, let's just charge people $5, $10, $20 a month and have that recurring revenue versus the one-time purchase.
Sure.
So what kind of came to that
I
decision?
mean, there's no doubt that we would make more money doing a subscription. It's just the way it is. And the truth is that monthly subscriptions, even though they're cheaper, make more than yearly subscriptions. And the literally the only reason that would be is because people forget to cancel their monthly subscription. So editing for me, and I'll talk about this more later, is just a joy. I can do it for 15 hours and feel like I just woke up. You know, I'm just like, I love it. I have fun with it. It's like a tabletop puzzle. I love it. And, but I don't do it every day. Maybe a lot of people edit every couple months or maybe every 3 months. And if they have to pay a subscription every month for something they're not using, it's just going to create this kind of negative vibe on this very creative and fun process. Like if I had to subscribe to a puzzle, tabletop puzzle, and then I didn't do it for 2 months, I would be like, this is making me feel so guilty. I need to do that puzzle. That becomes work, right? So I just think it's
It's the
not
whole
the
the
right.
gym situation. Sign up for a
Yeah,
gym to make you go to the gym.
right. And then you
Yeah,
feel guilty every month, right?
exactly.
That you don't do it. But I think that there are things that are great for subscriptions, things that are services where the company is constantly monitoring the world, making sure you're getting, you know, the best security or the best something, and things that add constant content in, like the subscription to Storyblocks. We pay Storyblocks a subscription to use their library, and we do pass that subscription on to our customers because otherwise we couldn't have it. But that's constantly new content that you get to. So those are great for subscriptions, but not editing. No, I'm against it.
No, and I appreciate that because, like I said, I've been using it for 6 years, and yes, there have been a couple add-ons, but the main purchase was a one-time 6-year purchase, you know. And I've
Right.
been using this, and again, LumaFusion, it's my career, so it's made me way more than what I've spent. It's probably the greatest return on investment I've ever had,
Thank you.
which is
That's
nice.
wonderful to hear. I mean, I think that not everybody will need speed ramping. Not everybody needs multicam for sure. So, and not everybody needs XML. So these are kind of like a la carte things. Yeah, if you need it, then please pay us for it because we do need to maintain our company and stay in business. But we don't want people that never use multicam to have to pay for that multicam. So
How do you go about balancing that thought process, like the ethical part of it? Because like you were talking about, you know, just your interactions with Corel and you know the ethics behind that, and then when it comes to subscriptions and the ethics behind that, how do you balance that with like making sure that your company stays profitable? Obviously, you don't have like shareholders and things like that that are peering over your shoulder,
yeah.
wanting you to generate as much revenue as possible. So that's a benefit. But where do you draw the line, or where's that? How do you generate that balance?
Well, I mean, that's a really good question. I think it is because Chris and I we founded the company with no investment. It was, you know, bootstrapped and we can make our own decisions. And both of us are not people that really desire to be, you know, mega wealthy. We just want to have, like for us, we're both older. I don't want to say how old I am, but I am older. So, like for me, it's all about the joy of just running the business and working with the people and being creative. And when that's gone, I'm gone. That's it. When it's not enjoyable anymore, I'm done. And I think that therefore I can make decisions that if we're able to keep the team afloat and we're able to have fun, then I don't need to gouge people for something.
And the fact that you're like accessible, like even at like NAB and other conferences, like you're there on the floor, whereas you know not every
Yeah.
CEO or co-founder would be there on the showroom floor,
Yeah.
mingling with the people.
That's the
So
most fun.
yeah,
Yeah. No, we just love it. We it's my community. I have always worked in video. I've always been a video editor, and you know, it does bring me to this topic of AI, which I don't know if you want to discuss that sometime. But anyway,
Yeah.
the love of storytelling and the love of the community and the love of what we do is core for us. And I think that oftentimes I see that threatened by different things, you know, just large companies swooping in and trying to make a buck, and they do. Or, you know, there's stuff with AI that really bothers me. So, yeah, I think it's easy to balance, I should say, Jeff.
Yeah.
It's just easy because I don't have a separate goal. My only goal is to be happy. So,
That's awesome. I did want to ask a little bit about, because now we've gone 6, 7 years and the landscape has changed a little bit in terms of competition
yeah.
in the mobile editing space. Of course, we mentioned Final Cut Pro came to the iPad, and which I tried, and of course I'm still using LumaFusion. But then there's also the DaVincis of the world, and then even more mobile first or more mobile focused editors like the CapCuts and stuff like that. So Cut is
Privacy policy.
insane.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
So kind of want to know your thoughts on all that. You know?
Okay, I'll start with the DaVinci and Final Cut. I mean, obviously, when you do something, you can't expect to be the only people. If it's good, someone else is going to do it. And I suppose in the perfect democratic world, it would be like, oh, now we have competition and we're going to do even better. But we are doing our best. That is it. We're doing our best. And if that doesn't take us to the end, then that will be the answer, right? But we were never resting on our laurels, so having competition come along can't do much more to us. You know, we just keep going. And honestly, I'm kind of proud that they didn't succeed in putting us out of business, you know, like we're a rock. And
Yeah.
I think that most companies that are faced with a very competitive product from the mother Apple, you know, would go out of business, and they do all the time. You know, lots of people have been Sherlocked and gone straight out of business, and we saw it happen and we felt it, but it didn't do us in. So
That's amazing. And then what is your relationship with Apple? Because I've noticed probably in like 2021, 2022, LumaFusion was in the keynotes. Like I saw them on the Pro Display XDR, or used with the iPad. But then, like, did you know Apple was coming out with the Final Cut Pro? Did they give you notice? Did they work with you guys at all?
Yeah, we knew that they would, due to you know, they didn't actually tell us they were, but they kind of warned us at one point.
Okay.
But that was almost 5 years before it happened. So we kind of
wow, okay.
like, okay, well, have fun
When
with
it comes,
that,
it comes.
because
Yeah.
you know, what are we supposed to do about it? Nothing.
Yeah.
So like we kind of knew it was on the horizon someday, but we also knew that there's nothing that can replace a team that is so passionate about what we're doing that every single person on the team edits and thinks about whether it was a joyful experience. And it's just really hard to reproduce that kind of passion in a large company. And I've been in many, so I know that it's true. So we were also kind of confident that we would be fine.
Yeah, and even if the ones in that company are like, I'm sure there's plenty of passionate people in Apple, but they don't have the ability to pivot and move as quickly as a company like LumaFusion, which has much more flexibility to be able to like put out releases like 5.0, where you have a whole bunch of big changes in one release, whereas it's more of a trickle when you're a bigger company.
Yeah, I mean, when I was at Avid, I'd have my feature list and I'd present it to the uppers, and they would say, you know, well, here's your deadline. If you don't have it by that, you're taking out these 5 things, you know, and I would just, it's heartbreaking because sometimes the features are so entwined that you're like, well, I don't want that without this thing. But, you know, the deadlines, it was just crazy. And always pitching for up to the uppers about what you're going to do. And almost, it's not like you're lying, but it's such a pitch because you are passionate as an individual, but you have to convince 8 people who are not passionate about it to put the money there, and that ruins the process.
And then that energy that you expend on that, like that could have been put into the creative process.
Oh, I
It's
was
just-
way more stressed at Avid than I am, having a whole company to deal with. Now I'm not stressed over the company at all. So
You can hear it in your voice, which is nice.
yeah.
Things are just working.
So CapCut. So Jeff, you mentioned the privacy policy, but I think this is a really good segue to AI because so I started my AI kind of deep dive at the end of 2023, and by NAB, I had been watching like Mo Gadot and reading Mustafa Suleiman and other founders in AI, and realized that many of them are scared to death. Like they are just like, uh-oh, we've released the Kraken, and what are we gonna, and here's the thing. What just gets me about AI is that the media industry is not and should not be the real target of AI. AI should be used for really important things like saving the earth, doing health improvements, curing cancer, Alzheimer's, all these things. But we are the test bed for how AI behaves. And even the founders of, the CEO at OpenAI and the founder of DeepMind, all these people will tell you they don't know how it behaves because they don't know exactly why it works. They know that if you throw loads of data with a neural network together with a lot of computing power, those things add up to some amazing things. And so a safe place for them to unleash it is in the media world. And they didn't think about the impact it could have to be able to put anybody's face on any moving body or anybody's voice on anybody's head or to make a video do anything in any place you want. What are the safety precautions here? So ironically, unleashing that into our industry and at the same time not having any safety protocols, and at the same time having stolen or scraped all of the media that we've ever created and still continue to create, to do that is just a mind-blowing irritation for me. I'm just like, I cannot. What other product in the world can come out and have no safety precautions and no care whatsoever and steal from from a whole industry and just say, oh, well, it was just research, and so we're not productizing it. It was just research, and we did it, and so now we put it out into the world for other companies to productize and monetize. But wait, you put our stuff out for other companies to productize and monetize? What is going on here? Like, why are we not, as an industry, saying, stop, this is not okay? And because this has all happened, I know at first I was thinking of AI like it's a feature. Oh, great, we're going to get this feature. We're going to get background removal. We're going to get new, voiceovers. We're going to get these features. But this is not a feature. This is a complete displacement of voiceover artists, musicians, editors, cameramen, people that make stock images. Everything that you think is part of our industry is replaceable with this technology. And it's not even like Photoshop comes out and all the photographers are like, oh no, I'm going to lose my job. No, they just learned how to manipulate Photoshop, and they had a new tool and they had new features. AI is different. It's not a new tool. It is someone to do our jobs. Like there's a thing there's a rule of logic that says if proposition is proposition, if P is P, then it is what it is what it means. And if we ask AI to do all of our creative tasks for our whole industry, then guess what? AI will do all of our creative tasks for our whole industry, and we don't have jobs. Like, everything starts with the story. It literally does. If you have a product idea, guess what you do? First thing you say, hey, I have an idea. Here's how it's going to work. And you tell a story about that product that you want to build. And that's what's at risk here. This is really, really an issue we should all be thinking about. And what is our response to that issue? My response as a business owner who makes a product that people use to be creative is to say, I will not allow my product to have anything in it that replaces creativity, that was built on stolen data, or that will share someone's data with someone else. That's my
No,
stance. That's my stance.
we definitely appreciate that perspective, because when you do describe it that way, it's easy to see, like, it's easy to get blinded by the features, right? Because it does kind of help your flow. It makes you a little bit more efficient. Some of the stuff works well. It helps with bouncing off ideas for ideation. But if you do zoom out, like you said, take a more macro approach to it, it could be a little doomsday for sure.
When you're being creative, you have a responsibility, or at least a choice, to use your own experiences, your own mind, your own thinking, to come up with something that is uniquely yours. So creativity is when you can take from multiple things in your life that you've seen, read, or heard, and combine them in different ways that are unusual, or that haven't been combined that way before. Of course they haven't, because they're yours, right? So that's how we get these heartfelt, true stories from people and true ways of looking at things. You have a choice not to use AI to do those creative tasks, that creative storytelling, that, I'm all for AI that, does something that's really, I'm incapable of. I've always been bad at, say, cleaning up audio voice. Like, I know where the frequency is, but So for instance, in LumaFusion, we have the voice isolation. That is fine. I mean, there's probably a few people that are like, that's my passion, I love doing that. But I don't think it's going to have an impact on society if we use voice isolation. So that's machine learning. It's on device. It's not trained with any AI that was scraped from the internet. So, like, I think that kind of AI is great, and it's appropriate for our industry. The kind of AI that is being unleashed is more appropriate for bigger problems that no one knows how to solve. We know how to be creative, right? We just need to do it, and that's it.
Knowing that there are tools out there where you can just say, hey, I want a song that sounds like this at this beat per minute with these types of instruments in it, it kind of dampens your, I guess, drive. Because, like, why am I even, how are they going to determine if my creation is original versus something that someone made in five? Like, it diminishes the value, I guess, of what the time and effort that I went into actually making the music, playing the guitar, playing the drums.
Right.
Like, if someone can just do that with a command, there's less motivation on my end to want to perfect my craft, so to speak, and get better at it, because it's kind of devalued. It's like, why am I going to put so much effort into learning how to make this song when I can just throw it in here from some AI music webpage? It's like all the time that I spend on that. And that goes back to another thing. It's like, there's creators out there, but there are people that aren't really creators. They just make stuff, and their motivation is something else. Like, they're just making stuff because it's a means to an end. It's
They
not
get
because
liked
they're
or whatever. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. There's just it's so nuanced. There's so many different, like, little areas that you can go into with
But
that.
you're already feeling it, Jeff. Like, you're feeling the impact of something that really just came onto the scene this year in a real way that we could use. And And I think that ultimately I could see a thing that I like to call um, a human only platform, you know, like and
Mm-hmm.
I call it a hop, right? I
Uh-huh.
can see this hop where it's only, you know, only verified human only made stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
that creators could have a life in there and do really cool things. But I don't see how to get from where we are today, where there's a mass of people making quick and dirty, but very slick looking AI stuff and outputting it really fast,
Mm-hmm.
to a place where there's a platform for people who are really creating. I see how it could happen, but I don't see I don't see the market. I don't see how we monetize that kind of creation. And that's what scares me. Like, would I tell my child to grow up and be a graphic artist, a voiceover artist, a video editor, a cameraman? No. Like, I would say, yeah, let's think
It's
just
tough.
something else, because that's not going to make you any money. And so I feel like I was kind of in this sweet spot. My career has been in a sweet spot where you could totally get out of high school or college or whatever and actually make a living creating videos and editing videos and doing all that stuff. And then, you know, I'm close to retirement age, so I I had the sweet spot, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel this fear for younger people coming into the industry that there's just not a path from where we are to this other utopia where there's human only platforms.
So with all this being said, and your opinion on the AI world, is there is there a situation where there are? I guess I'm going to lean more towards tools, right? Tools into LumaFusion, similar to the voice isolation features that you guys have, where you bring in a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe like you said, removing backgrounds, making things a little bit quicker, a little easier. Again, not replacing creativity, just
Yeah.
helping us be creative, I guess.
I mean, yeah,
Like,
and
is there
it's
a world
all,
where that's okay?
yeah, of course there is. I mean, AI itself isn't evil. It's just how
Mm-hmm.
we choose to implement it, and where the data came from, and does it take away from our creativity? And that is subjective. That's just like, I'm here, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to decide because it's my company, so I can't. Like, you know, I want to say, because, well, there was a moment when someone said to me, well, surely we could just have it do a rough cut with AI and then you can just trim the stuff. And I said, no, because when I'm editing, sometimes my best ideas come from looking through my footage and saying, "Oh my gosh, that image would go so perfect with that what that person said." And I wouldn't, if I don't spend the time to look through my own media and make those connections, which is creativity, then it won't happen. And then I've, it's ridiculous, but yes, I've lost a core piece of creative storytelling. And so I really think about things in that way. Is this going to diminish, as Jeff said, the joy or the motivation for doing my project? Or does it help me along? It's just like, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
really, really want this thing to happen, and I know I could just press a button and I can move on with my story, like a background removal. Yeah, let's do it.
Mm-hmm. And I guess my final question, since we are in the Apple world, what is your take on how Apple is implementing Apple Intelligence? Is there room for that to be integrated into LumaFusion? Are you guys working around it at all? Is it in
I
discussion?
mean,
What does that look like to you?
well, Chris looks very carefully at what, how the sausage is made. So
Mm-hmm.
my role is more of the video editor, sort of product manager, kind of designer role.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that when it comes to looking at how the sausage made, Chris will determine whether there's anything that's unethical or that and he'll present that to me. He'll say, "Hey, I'd like to do this feature." And I'm like, "Nah, nah, nah, nah." Like, I'll say, "That's going to impede on what I think is the joy of editing," and then we'll have a discussion about it. But we haven't had that discussion yet. So.
Well, LumaFusion is doing amazing. 5.0 is amazing. I've been playing around with it.
Thank
Is there any thing in the future that we can expect from LumaFusion? Not necessarily AI related, but like a big, I won't say low hanging fruit, but something that, I guess, what are your customers wanting next? Because obviously we talked about the speed ramping, but what is the next big thing? If you can talk about it, I don't even know.
Well, I mean, there are a number of, as the minute we put out speed ramping, maybe one of the first comments on YouTube was, "Well, what about masking?" Like, but there we do have things coming. Some of them are, when you're developing, you have to look at what Apple is doing and does it make sense for us to develop something or wait 6 months because we have a feeling they're doing something or other. So, but one thing that we did do with refactoring the code is make it possible for us to pivot quickly, move quickly, and output features more regularly than we have been in the past. And I, on my end, have been looking at the entire creator workflow, beyond the edit. What happens before the edit? What happens after the edit? To try to find ways that we can expand our sort of ethos into those areas, and that ethos being intuitive, creative, empowering workflows. And so we're hot and heavy on a lot of things, but I can't really say what they are yet because we always get in trouble when we do that.
Thank you so much for joining us, Terri. It's been an amazing chit chat with you. We're happy to see LumaFusion still doing so well, and we're confident it will continue to do so as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate you two having me on, and
No, of course.
hopefully we'll see you again.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And we'll link all the information down below, how to get it, the links, your information as well. And if you guys are looking for a video editor and you made it this far into the interview, definitely check out LumaFusion because you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, if you made it this far.
If you made it this far.
Yeah.